Let's bring in tonight's panel. Republican strategist Spencer Sullivan is here. Aaron Sherb, Common Cause Director of Legislative Affairs. Good to see you both.
Happy to be on. Thank you for having us.
Well, you wanted to talk about Bryce Harper staying in D.C., but unfortunately, we don't have...
much easier.
Yeah, it would be. This has been an extraordinary day because the messaging is way off once again on this. I mean, where do we see the president standing here?
Yeah, extraordinary day, absolutely. And just before I came on, CNN, I think, sent out an alert that said President Trump is going to hold Vladimir Putin responsible for what's going on. So this was 5 minutes before we came on, right? Yeah. So yeah, words matter, and it shouldn't be a president who is very loose with words at times and has to walk back statements and kind of doesn't have a half walk back. But actions matter more, right? When we talk about actions, we're talking about actions of President Trump and how he's dealt with Russia. I mean, he's been a very tough president on Russia by his actions.
But those are the words that we heard Sarah Huckabee Sanders say today. We heard him say it today. But, you know, still, though, when you hear a president talking out of both sides of his neck, who are we supposed to believe? What's your take on this?
Well, the White House can't get its story straight, and the bottom line is that Russia attacked the United States, not with nuclear weapons and guns, but with zeros and ones. And unless President Trump is going to stand up to Russia, then we need Congress to fulfill its oversight responsibility and do that.
But Spencer said, and we heard the GOP say today, his actions have shown he's been tough on Russia. Do you buy that?
Well, the fact that sanctions haven't been fully enforced yet, that's a key shortcoming. Common Cause is calling on Congress to pass the Special Counsel Independence and Integrity Act, which would help protect Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation and future special counsels. I think also having the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Bob Corker, is holding a hearing next week with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to hear about what his perspective is in the Helsinki meeting. So those are steps in the right direction, but it's not there yet.
We've seen a lot of reaction from the Helsinki press conference and moving on from that. Was it overkill? Because, you know, obviously, Spencer, I think we can agree that anytime the president says anything, you are going to have an opposite and equal reaction from the other side. The difference this time around, you had many Republicans coming out too and saying, wait a second.
Yeah, I think this was a unique opportunity for a lot of Republicans down ballot, especially in an election year, to get some of their distance away from President Trump when need be, right? But more importantly, I feel anytime you push a negative too hard, it can flip, right? So a lot of times we see, like you said, any news story of the day, they're saying treason, they're saying impeach, all this good stuff, right? And that's going to point President Trump almost as a victim, and that's a role that he plays very well, and that plays right into his base. So again, if everything's outrageous, then nothing's outrageous.
The Democrats, some Democrats have been calling for the translator, the interpreter who was in the room with the president when he met with Vladimir Putin to come and testify about what was said during that meeting. But certainly we know Republicans are in control of Congress. What's your take? Is this a good idea? What's the likelihood this is really going to happen?
Well, I think, it's unclear if there's precedent for that, but if there is, then I think that's something that should definitely be considered, given that Republicans control congressional committees since they're in charge. That's ultimately up to them, but it certainly has to be discussed as an option because the American public deserves that transparency of what was discussed in those meetings, and we haven't gotten a full explanation of that, or we've gotten multiple conflicting explanations of what was discussed, and so the American people really deserve that transparency.
And when we go back to the issue of messaging, going back to what Sarah Huckabee Sanders had said earlier today when she said, well, the president said no, he meant no to more questions. At some point here, the messaging, getting people on the same page, regardless of where you stand politically, is so poor these days. And I feel, though, Spencer, that the White House really feels, and this plays well to their base when you make the media look like the enemy here. But in this case, we're just trying to get answers.
Yeah.
And I feel, though, I think there's a lot of people who look at this, they invested their trust in President Trump because they believe in his message of bringing jobs back. The job numbers are good right now. The economy's doing very well right now. But it's things like this when the president's worried about the superlatives. I'm doing the best. I'm number one. Nobody does it like me. This is where they keep tripping up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm going to go give you your daily sports reference here, right? MLB All-Star Game was here this past weekend. I noticed you were there. From my perspective, Ken Griffey Jr., a baseball player, had one of the most crisp, perfecting, beautiful swings you could ever see. He got the job done, right?
Yep.
Very, very crisp, very clean. Babe Ruth, unconventional, controversial, but got the job done.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing here. You're seeing a president that is unconventional. You're seeing President Trump that's very controversial at times, but you're seeing a president who's getting the job done.
Aaron, we got 10 seconds.
Well, it's hard to compare Donald Trump to Babe Ruth, but I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, Spencer Sullivan, Aaron Sherb, thank you guys so much for coming in.
Happy to be on.
Appreciate
Gentlemen,
it.
great to see you both.
Thank you.
All right. The Russian woman charged with conspiracy to be a Russian agent inside the U.S. appeared in federal